Guys, thank you for being here. And I wanted to, thank all the attendees and the panelists who are here. Uh, COVID-19 has been a problem area for all of us, and with everything that we keep hearing, things seem to be either good or bad, depending who you are wanting to listen to. But everybody's concerned about one very important thing, which is our jobs. So, where are the jobs? What are people doing about these jobs? What has changed in the post-COVID scenario? And a lot of people asked us or approached us to get some answers to some of these questions. So we thought we'll do this webinar and get you a very esteemed panel of people who are in the thick of some of the questions that you have and can answer these questions for you. So I'll introduce the panel members today with me. I have Shailja. Shailja is chairperson and founder of Stellar Search, which is a search agency. She's been in search for more than 26 years now, and she has an extremely amazing amount of knowledge on hiring trends across not just India, but Asia Pacific, Middle East. She's done so much amount of work. If you are looking for a good assignment, I can any day recommend Shailaja to anyone. I've known her for many, many years, and she's an excellent person to know. Gautam Sinha is co-founder and CEO of CB Rex, a technology platform which enables hiring and helps bring efficiency to hiring. Gautam has been a very dear friend for a very long period of time. And again, the amount of knowledge he brings on, recruiting is amazing from the tech perspective. He's had multiple startups and he's been, part of this entrepreneurship journey where he's helping a lot of companies or a lot of people, bring their dream to life of becoming an entrepreneur. So he's again a guy who brings a lot of value, and I'm sure you guys will enjoy uh, the interaction with him. Alok Nigam is Senior Vice President and Group CHRO for the Bhartiya Group. Alok has worked with a lot of very marquee kind of organizations during his career as a HR head and in various other work that he's done in HR. He is also doing a lot of work around coaching people, mentoring people, and they are in the middle of hiring. He keeps track of what's happening. His company works in multiple industries, so he's going to bring in a lot of perspective from the internal HR side to this discussion. So welcome, the panelists, and welcome to all the attendees. And I'll begin the process by starting out with Shailaja to know, Shailaja, you've been tracking this space for such a long period of time. In the post-COVID scenario, what do you tell people today about the sectors or the jobs that are, doing well, or where there are opportunities that are there and what people can look forward to?
So, I'll take that as, the sort of work that we do. I'll take that question in that context. We do a lot of leadership hiring, and I have to say that I don't think that I saw a dip in leadership hiring even during the pandemic. It actually continued. It was quite robust. There were sectors, I would say, that have gone through a very rough time. Some have recovered. The ones that are still in recovery mode are hospitality, aviation, entertainment, real estate, which is now sitting on a lot of empty inventory. They're going through a very, very rough time. Manufacturing, of course, went through a very rough time, but I do believe that they have now bounced back to pre-COVID levels. So those are sectors that I think, they're hit, they're going to take time to recover. There are sectors that I'm very bullish about, and those are sectors I've always been very bullish about. Healthcare and life sciences is one of them, and the pandemic maybe provided them a very unique opportunity. And you see the amount of private equity investment that has happened in this sector in the last 1 year. It's been huge. The other sector that I think has done really, really well and will continue to do well is e-commerce. If you're solving problems today for employees, the normal common man, that business, if you're using technology to do that, those businesses will continue to do well. EduTech, another big sort of, lots and lots of action in that sector, because there was this entire push for schooling to happen online. That sector saw a huge surge, and I think that's going to continue. That's actually going to continue. Even with schools opening, I think that sector sort of consolidated it, itself, and it's in a great place now. I also think that all these, the med tech, the fintech, logitech, the logistics sector, these are again sectors that I'm very bullish about. And lastly, I think now more, digitally enabled consulting, whether it's in the area of data privacy, cybersecurity, those are other areas that I feel, are on an upswing. So, yeah, so I would say these sectors.
Gautam, I know that you've done a huge amount of work, during this pandemic, when everybody was saying that jobs are down. I think you processed a huge number of jobs. Can you share with us what has happened, especially in the sectors that you're working in or the skills that you are enabling?
Yeah, thanks. Great to be here, Sanjay. So, look, as you said, and for the benefit of others, look, I've been in recruiting since '94. Okay, that's when I started, and I became an entrepreneur in recruiting in '96. And I'm not even exaggerating. Okay, I have seen 3 waves in recruiting, beginning with the one that I saw in '97, which was Y2K, right? For people who are of my vintage, like Sanjay. And we were all, that was the first wave in recruiting. India never hired as many. I'm talking about '97, '98. Believe me, what I am seeing today is a tsunami. I'm not exaggerating. I have never in my life seen India hiring as many people as I have seen in the last 3 to 4 months. And this is just the beginning. Okay, look, we deal with about 31 countries. Okay, now this whole scenario started changing around July. Till July, things were very cold. But from July, August, it's just started rising, right? Of course, America is still slow, but now, thankfully, for the last 1 or 2 months, even our American customers have started coming back. Europe still continues to be sleepy. Japan was always whatever it is. Japan was always flat. But America went down dramatically, and now it started to come up a bit. Europe is sleepy, but India is going through this massive hiring, upsurge. That's the only word I can use, right? Primarily digital skills, but for different types of industries, right? Something to what Shailja was saying, right? Companies which were hiring 20, 30, 40 are hiring 300, 400, right? It's at a different level, right? And what has happened is that, Sanjay, you'll be familiar, as we have seen the earlier waves, the joining ratio started to come down, right? Especially in that 3 to 10 year bracket, right? A good guy will have 3 offers. And by the time we hit June, I'm sure he'll have 5. Okay, so it's a complete war for talent, right? And nothing which I have seen. And as I said, I've been in this for 25 years. So it's a great time to be in the hiring industry right now. Okay, it's like what people say, the wind is behind you, right? Like everybody is getting pushed forward. So absolutely amazing last 3-4 months.
Wonderful to hear that. Alok, you are part of, the corporate India, which is hiring. And Shailja did talk about one of the sectors that your company operates in, which is real estate. What has been your take on this, and what are the kind of plans that you have for hiring across your businesses? You're on mute, Alok.
Sanjay, yeah, we are in one of the industries about which Shailja mentioned. But even in that industry also, we didn't see any slowdown. We saw, those 3-4 months of, let's say, April to July, lockdown months, or peak months in terms of pandemic. But even there also, as I recall, we have hired people. We have in fact hired at least one CXO, two CXO minus roles, CXO minus one role, and people even at middle level also. So we are quite upbeat as far as that sector is concerned, even real estate is concerned. Yes, we see a little slowdown in the leasing business of the real estate side, but even that is also, as I speak, in this webinar, I know that we have plans even on the leasing side, commercial leasing side, retail leasing side, because our assets are coming up fast, that we will see a northward trend even there also. Yeah, the other sector in which we are, as you know, is manufacturing and apparel sector, retail sector. There we have seen a downside. We are still recovering from those tough times. It will take time, as Shailja said, that some of these sectors which will still see some more months for the light to come. Those are the other sectors where we will see traction coming maybe 6 months, 9 months down.
Gautam, one of the other things that has changed in hiring seems to be the way technology is disrupting everything, right? And you've been part of this journey, and you're disrupting the market a lot with what you've created. Will you talk about what's happening and what do you see happening going forward that everybody needs to start taking cognizance of coming on board with?
I think there are two parts to it, Sanjay. I mean, if you look at technology disruption in recruiting, it began with the job boards in the late 90s, right? That was probably the first technology tool, at least on the sourcing side, right? But Monster, I remember Monster came in around 96, 97, right? And then there was the ATS, right? Which came in the early 2000, right? That was the second wave. Now, there are two things which have happened, right? One is the fact that there are a lot of tools now in the last, say, 5 or 6 years, right, on various aspects of hiring, right? There's tools on assessment, there's tools on candidate engagement, interview, like video interview platforms and so on. So I think there will be consolidation of tools, and I think some of these has already started happening. I don't think there'll be so many HR tech or HR tool companies. I think they will, get fused together. Some buyouts will happen, and a lot of it has been happening. It's not that they've not been, right? Even ATS companies have got bought out, right, in the last 5 or 6 years. The bigger ones have bought the smaller ones. So that consolidation will continue to happen. I think the HR tool business or the recruitment tool business will continue to consolidate. But the interesting part is that I don't think today a recruiter can really work without tools. I think that's the reality. And I think for recruiters, and I'm talking both ends, that is corporate recruiters as well as recruiting agencies, right, which is on the supply side. For both of them, I think the key is how digitally savvy are you, right? I think that recruiters who are still, what I call in the email era, right, which started in the mid 90s when we started working, right, they are really going to get left behind. Because I think the email era is now over. I think that was the first recruiting tool after fax machines, right? So that era is over. So unless and until recruiters are open to adopting new tools, and believe me, it's not that simple. I think there are still a lot of recruiters who are living in that old era, right? And I think they have to change, and they have to change very quickly. Digital adoption is a reality, right? It's at our doorstep now. And the pandemic has only accelerated this whole digital adoption, right? Whatever would take 5 years is not going to happen in 5 or 6 months, right? Because that's the reality. So I think tool adoption, whether it's for sourcing, for databases, for interview platforms, assessment, all that is going to become an increasing reality. And I think more and more recruiters at both ends will have to adopt tools because that's the future. And if you're really not going to adopt them, then I don't see you really prospering in this new digital age of recruiting.
Shalja, what are you seeing? You are part of leadership hiring, which has not been so positively impacted, I would say, maybe from what I know, and in the adoption of technology per se. At the lower levels, definitely people go submit their resumes. The senior folks are still a little wary of putting up their CVs and everything. How do you see this playing out going forward for at least the middle and top level hiring? Do you see that changing? Do people who are in the recruiting world need to start thinking about this, and how corporates need to also think about it?
So let me talk about the search side first and then get into the corporate side. So on the search side, I think search firms that have been slow to adopt technology in terms of how they're managing their data, how they store knowledge, because we're really, at the end of the day, we're a knowledge-based organization. We're not really a data-based organization. For search firms, data is a commodity. Our knowledge is our IP. So we have no interest in the data, but we have a lot of interest in how we capture knowledge. And what technology have you used to capture knowledge and to then revisit it and to update it regularly? How are you managing the customer journey? Because for us, assignments are large value assignments, and they make a difference to the life of a candidate dramatically, and they can change the fortunes of a company. So you're in a different sort of playground there. And there you need to manage your customer journey, whether it is your client or whether it's a candidate, because your candidate today is your client tomorrow. So there is a lot of work which is being done by, and I think that the more agile you are as a firm, the smaller, the more agile you are, you're able to adopt to, and adapt to new technologies faster. And I think firms like us have a huge advantage versus global firms, which are very, very large. So when you have to make a change, it has to happen across the firm globally. And it takes that much longer to implement. On the client side, I think that there is still a lot of work to be done on the corporate side. And I'm actually going to let Alok talk a little bit about that, because he can talk from real life experiences. Because I still think that, because they have their HR systems integrated into their ERPs, there is a lag, there is, a lot of times it's not real time, it requires a lot of updation, but I'm going to leave him to talk about that. Because I think it gets impacted at a leadership level, at a junior level more on the corporate side. Leadership hirings are fewer always, and they're very person to person. It's either the board and the search consultant, or the search consultant and the CEO or the CHRO. So it's a different cycle altogether. But Alok, if you can talk a little bit about what's happening on the corporate side with technology.
Yeah. Sure, Shalja, you're right. And before that, Gautam said that days of email are, over. I'm reminded of 1994, 95, when somebody used to ask us, do you have an email ID? So we can send CVs to you. So from that to, where we are today. Coming to technology and, tools that, we adopt for recruitment and hiring today. The trend is there for quite some time now. It's not that, this has happened just because of pandemic or, where we are today. For almost last 10, 12 years, these tools, are in place, and some of us are actually using it. I remember many, many years back in one of my last organization, we automated the complete, process of hiring in terms of application tracking system, in terms of, doing data analytics, etc. There is, this is bound to change the face and scope of recruitment globally. More so, as Shalja, you mentioned out, at the junior level, entry level, maybe at middle level. The process is getting digitized, and the quantum of digital data that is generated today, especially at junior level, middle level, this entire piece on the big data analytics is gaining and will gain more importance. Yes, the consolidation will happen. The tools, will be a vital few, you cannot, a recruiter cannot, corporate today cannot, just work, without tool, with ATS and, similar tools.
One of the things that I think I should also mention is that where I see incredible amount of digitization and AI application happening, and it's just fascinating to see these young kids who come up with organizations is in the area of background verification and reference checking. It's just the sort of data they're able to pull out, and at the speed at which they're able to do it is amazing.
It's amazing.
And search firms have used a lot of this sort of, I know that we use it. If I want to do a check on Alok, at the press of a button, I really know what his social media feeds look like, how many people have given him references on LinkedIn, what is he writing about? There's actual analytics that's done about what does he write about? What are the things he stands for? Those are the sort of things we look at at a leadership level when we're evaluating a candidate. And there are tools today which are so sophisticated that they give you all this at a press of a button.
One of the questions I wanted to come to later, but since you brought
I just want to add something here, Sanjay, on the tech part. Very interesting, because we are all from the HR fraternity. See, it's very interesting to see who are the people who are behind HR tech companies. Who are the founders of these HR tech companies? And how many of them have come from HR backgrounds? And let me tell you, you would be shocked.
Not many.
Not many. We are being charitable. We are being charitable. I don't want to quote the figure because it looks pretty horrible. Okay. And let me tell you, I've been in the HR tech now for the last 5 years, ever since I started this last company. And obviously, one is in that HR tech, recruit tech, whichever word you want to use, that area, and one gets to meet a lot of people in similar, building similar tech solutions. And I have not come across anyone, zero. Okay, apart from me. Okay, and believe me, it makes a difference. You talk to a tech, and with due respect, a tech guy who's never done recruiting in his life, right? When I talk to him, I have a smile on my face because the guy is clued out, okay? Completely great tech guy, right? Great tech brain, but absolutely no idea, okay? Apart from whatever he's heard, or maybe the 5 people that he's hired when he was tech manager in some company or architect in some company, right? And I think that the real breakthroughs will come when great HR guys combine with great tech guys, right? And build solutions for the HR tech or recruit tech space. I think that, if you ask me, is a big lacuna, right? At the, which, and I've been seeing this for the last 5 years, right? And it's true even in the US. It's not that, this is an India specific phenomenon, right? It's true even there. And I think that has to change. I think more and more HR folks have to come out, and set up or combine with tech folks, and because there are so many problems to be solved, right? And build great HR tech or recruit tech companies. Yeah, sorry, Sanjay.
Well, Shailesh, you brought out a very important point about, data being available. Now, from a perspective of people who are wanting to get hired today, what will be your advice to them about, some of the things that are happening online, some of the things that are available as public information about us? How much careful would we become, or how much effort should we all put in towards, the online information that's available about us to get hired? If you can give some advice to people around that, and Alok, then I'll come to you from a corporate side on the same thing.
So I'm going to actually, I'll share an example, of course, with you, but I think you have to be very careful. And you'll have to be very careful going forward. What you're putting out in the world and the digital trail that you're leaving behind, more and more employers are interested in that. So they look at what you're saying in interviews, and then they want to validate that by whatever else information that they do collect, whether it's through the reference checks, whether it's through what I call social media checking. And it's a thing now. It's actually a thing now that for leadership roles, this has to be done. I had an experience 7 years ago. I was hiring in a CEO for a company in South Africa. It was a large beverage company, and I was really excited. It was one of the biggest searches we were doing that year. And the candidate got hired, passed all the rounds of interviews. He was a South African, went through all the rounds of interviews. Great candidate. I mean, just incredible executive presence. Spoke really well in the interviews. He had a reasonably good background. And I was sitting on the table and just talking to my children, and I said, oh, I've closed this great search today, and there's a fabulous guy getting hired in South Africa, and as the CEO of so and so company. And my son he was 13, and he just asked out of curiosity. He says, "Who's the person that you're hiring?" And we never talk about this with our families, but South Africa seems so far away. I don't think telling him seemed to be such a problem. So I just mentioned the person's name, and he was sitting on the table with his phone. And then he sort of, after 5 minutes, he said, "Is this the guy?" And this was 7 years ago. And I said, yes. He had the most ridiculous racial content on his Facebook. He was clearly someone who had gone off the rails totally. I think he was a semi-alcoholic. It was such a wake-up call. Immediately, phones were ringing everywhere because I was calling the client and telling them, we have to stop right now. We're going to have to do a very deep dive into his background. And can you imagine hiring someone who has very strong racial overtures in a place like South Africa? It would have been a disaster. And 7 years ago, you realized that, you said, I have to look for technology that helps me find this immediately. And today that technology is like widely used across Stellar. So it is important. You have a personal brand, and that brand is everything about you which is out there in the world. It's not just what you present in an interview. So yeah, I would tell job seekers that you need to be cognizant that your employer may want to look up the social media trail that you're leaving behind.
Alok, what's your perspective on it? When you guys are hiring, are you looking at digital footprint of a person? Do you hear your friends doing this, very aggressively today compared to what we were doing earlier?
Absolutely, Sanjay. Absolutely. And what Shailja just mentioned, this has become in thing. This is something which is so very important. Even before you start interacting with the candidate, when you receive the profile from a headhunter, me and my team, we would want to know what kind of background, what kind of preferences, what kind of choices, what kind of even places that he goes, what kind of comments he make on let's say if somebody has made a comment on Twitter, how does he respond to that? So whether it's Instagram, whether it's Twitter, whether it's Facebook, yeah, there have been, I don't know, Shailja, whether you hired that CEO or not, but I know of 2 cases in my career, in last 1.5 years, where I have said no to the headhunter basis some of the insights that have been given to me by my own team and by myself also. No, this would be because more than anything else, apart from the skills that one has, apart from the pedigree one has, one is also looking how is he going to get culturally fit into your organization. And some of these traits and some of these behaviors and social skills and social media skills, they definitely give a perspective. So yeah, we definitely do that. And I know a lot of my friends who are in HR fraternity, especially hiring for the leadership CXO level, CXO -1 level, we do that. It's absolutely necessary now.
And now more so. Now more so because everybody's working from home and we're living in this hybrid virtual offline online workspace, so even more so.
So another question that comes to me a lot, a lot of people have come to me and said, I want to log out of social media. I don't want to be there because there are so many risks. Now, is that a good strategy for people to just log out of it and not have any footprint? Or would you recommend, all three of you have to answer this, because this is becoming a very important question people are asking, because saying that I'm on social media, I will post something, I will do something. Companies may look at it very negatively. It doesn't give a correct reflection of who I am or what I do or what I bring to the table. Should I log out then? Would you advise them to be there or not be there at all? What would you say?
I think.
Okay, so okay, after you, Alok.
So no, what I was saying is that escapism is no answer. Denial and escapism is no answer, right? You have to be savvy. You have to be a responsible social media user, responsible towards society, responsible towards community. What you are posting, what you are reacting to. You may have political affiliations, you may have religious affiliations, but how do you do that? How do you post that? How do you make people know about it is important. But logging out or escapism is no answer.
I also think that it's very important. I mean, the world is becoming digital. I mean, Gautam's been talking about the fact that digital skills. If the world is becoming digital, how are you going to not exist in that world? The more important thing about this is how authentic are you? It's about focused. You need to be focused, you need to be authentic, you need to be consistent. That's how you build a digital brand for yourself. And you have to, think about it logically. Do people really care about where you eat? Or where, you're partying, if you're a CEO and you're partying with your employees and everybody looks drunk, is that something that you even want to share with the world? Those are questions you have to ask yourself.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting, Sanjay, Alok and Shailja. If you look at the world before social media, we always did reference checks by asking people on the phone, right? So I remember hiring during those days. You would call up, at least you would call up one or two people, right?
You still do.
Find,
you still call a lot of people.
Yeah, but I'm saying in those days, so there was no other way to do it, right? Because there was no, even background agencies were not around or not in this organized fashion in the 90s, right? Actually, if you ask me, that is far more worse because you're relying on the judgment of one or two people. Right here, I think social media has made it democratic, right? Yeah. Yes, privacy is dead, and we all know that, right? I mean, I think we are living in a fool's paradise if we carry smartphones, and all of us do, and we think that that's really being unaware, right? So let's get that out of our head. Privacy is dead. So now that we are out of that, living in a fool's paradise situation, let's look at reality. So reality is that if you're on social media, right, in my opinion, you have a better way because it's democratic, right? It's not going to be Sanjay's opinion of me. If I'm calling up Sanjay and saying, hey, Sanjay, do you know Gautam and you work with him in so-and-so company? And then I'm relying on whatever Sanjay is talking about me, right? Here, at least, there are multiple posts. Yeah, and if you're going to be, for lack of a better word, stupid, and post stuff which is, which is inappropriate,
it's on you.
Yeah, then you deserve not to get that job. It's as simple as that. And that's good, right? Hopefully it'll teach you a lesson, right? If you don't have that much of common sense, as you're saying, Shailja, and you're uploading stupid stuff, then, hey, you don't deserve to get the job anyway, right? So it's fine. I think it's great. I think social media has made it so democratic, right? We can go through Twitter feeds, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever else, we have access to. And it's all out there, right? And it's okay. It's anyway available, right? I don't have to ask you for your permission, right? Anyway, you're posting it. So yeah, why not?
So Shailja, this post-COVID world, do you see a change in expectation in any which way in the job market, both from the corporate side of the people or from people's side, when they are joining an organization? Are there anything that has changed in this post-COVID scenario?
So I think this change has been, building up slowly, and maybe COVID accelerated it a little bit. But it's not that, there was something different pre-COVID and there's now something different post-COVID. It just accelerated a lot of maybe, realizations in terms of what expectations clients have. So let me give you from a client's perspective when they're hiring leaders. I think they've gone from that view that I want a really strong leader. I hear more and more that boards are saying, I want a flexible, adaptive, leader. Somebody who has very flexible cognitive skills. Somebody who understands the VUCA world and knows how to function in it and has that resilience. Somebody who can lead with purpose and not with like discipline and all the sort of things that maybe, and we're all like, we all started our careers in the 80s, and we've gone through the 90s, and how you were looking for those strong leaders, execution focus, so on and so forth. Now it's a lot about, prioritizing purpose over profit, because, companies are realizing that the best talent wants to work in companies that have a purpose. So there is that, need that they have. High EQ is another thing that comes up again and again when you're looking at leadership roles. So beyond functional and general management skills, these are conversations that are happening in boardrooms. When you look at the other side and you talk to candidates, they want organizations, they want to work for companies that have purpose, that have future, that are looking, that, which have visionary boards, or the promoter is a visionary. So they want to go and work with companies like this. They want to go and work with companies where there is hygiene factors are totally taken care of. Today, you can't get into executive negotiation and say, you'll get this, but you won't get this. They want to make sure that hygiene is taken care of. And then it's about value creation. So from the candidate's perspective, he's saying, can I create value in this organization? And will the organization be willing to share a little bit of that with me? Whether it's through ESOPs or RSUs or, so there's a lot of these sort of discussions and this chatter happening at leadership levels.
Look, from a perspective of a corporate, do you get today, there's a little bit of a situation that we are in right now, that we are not clear on what COVID is doing to us, or, it has an impact on the work environment. Is there an expectation of people that if they are joining organizations, they will be allowed to work from home, or given the flexibility to choose whether they come to work or don't come to work? Do you see that as something that's playing out in the hiring decisions today?
Yeah, that's right, Sanjay. A lot of people, when we meet them, when we talk to them, when the headhunters or the agencies present their candidature, this is one thing which is always in the mind of people. How flexible is the organization? How flexible is the work content? Whether I can work remotely, I can be accommodated for my personal needs, especially post-pandemic. But I don't think that pandemic has created this kind of environment. This has been there for quite some time now. At least for last many years, we have been seeing that people want to be flexible. People want to do, let's say, more of project work. People want to what is now known as gig working. People want to engage themselves in small projects and be flexible about it. So that has been there. The pandemic has probably given it a little more acceleration. But yes, the people whom we are meeting today, one of the questions that they ask is that how much family time we can get, how much work from home or remote working can we do. Not only in my organization, but with the people with whom I interact, the HR folks in my own network. this is something which is becoming more, and probably yes, pandemic has given a little acceleration to it.
I feel very happy if gig work
Uh,
improves.
from an organization perspective also, from our perspective also, we are also looking at people who are flexible, who believe in multitasking, who want to unlearn few things that they have learned in the past, and start relearning the way the organization is expecting them to perform. The social skills, Shailja mentioned about the EQ, or emotional skills. We have also gone ahead and look at the people who have got seeking, what we start calling as curiosity quotient. How much they want to innovate, how much they want to know more, how much inquisitive they are. So we are also looking from that perspective, and in some of the hiring decisions that me and my team have done and my leaders have done, we have taken this aspect of inquisitiveness a little more seriously now.
Gautam, from a perspective of recruiters and a community that you work a lot with, and your technologies have been also trying to support some of these people, how do you see their role changing in this post-COVID scenario? How do tech is taking over part of the work. So do we need to be concerned as a recruiter about what tech will take away? And post-COVID, everybody is trying to move a lot of this work to technology. What will be your advice? What should they be doing in this post-pandemic scenario?
Let me answer that question in two parts, Sanjay. One is that for me, post-pandemic, the biggest change is going to be remote work. And we're already seeing that in the tech sector. In fact, most of my customers today, even after the pandemic is over and vaccination is done, I don't think more than 50% of the workforce will come back to office. I think we are in for, this is going to be a massive shift. It may take a couple of years. And I'm sure you must have read Spotify has already announced that, they don't care. In fact, Spotify has gone one step. They're saying the salary will remain the same. So a guy in Mumbai will get the same salary as a guy in Manhattan, right? I mean, that's revolutionary, right? I mean, it was inconceivable even 12 months ago. Imagine what will happen to the visa laws, immigration laws. If I don't need to go to the US to work for a US company, there'll be no H1, right? I mean, I can sit in ODP and code for Microsoft, right? I mean, this is going to be tectonic shifts, right? I mean, I think this is just the beginning. I think what we're going to see in the next 2 or 3 years is something which we have never seen ever since Industrial Revolution. Industrial Revolution required us to be in a particular location. I think that has disappeared, right? And I think it'll disappear even further. As digitization becomes more and more common, I think that location will become irrelevant. So Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, the big cities, and I'm hoping against hope, will start moving into Bhopal, Lucknow, because people won't need to come to Bangalore. I mean, Bangalore today, I am in Bangalore. Bangalore, 40% of Bangalore is empty. I mean, it's a pleasure to drive on the roads of Bangalore today, right? I reach a place which I used to reach 20 years ago, because there is nobody on the road, because people have gone back, and I'm hoping they don't come back, right? And so are they, because look at the kind of money they are saving, right? I mean, so that I think is a huge shift, right? And I think it will get accelerated. Coming to your recruiter question, I think the biggest advantage today for recruiters is they can hire anywhere. Again, you don't need a recruiter in the US to hire for the US. You don't need a recruiter in Russia to hire for Russia, right? So that location thing again has gone away, right? The digitization will ensure that if you're a good recruiter, you look at a market which is lucrative, right? Why would a recruiter based on Bangalore work for an Indian company? I mean, if he's getting paid more working for a company in Manhattan, then so be it, right? So that I think is going to be a huge shift. It's already been happening for the last 5 or 6 years. I think it's going to get accelerated even further, and remote work will even change it further, right? So recruiters will get access to work from across the world. very similar to like a graphic designer, right? I mean, I can sit in Bangalore and design logo for a company in Europe and get paid in euros, right? So that is going to happen in recruiting, right? That's one big shift, globalization, whatever word you want to use. Second would be, Sanjay, I think the future is hybrid. Okay, when we are a partial machine learning, I won't say AI, machine learning company, and the very clearly what we are seeing is that in the recruiting space, the future is going to be hybrid. It's not going to be AI versus HI, human intelligence. It's going to be AI plus HI. So I don't think recruiters need to be scared. I think AI or ML is just a tool, right? And end of the day, I think we are much better than AI or HI, say AI or ML. I mean, we only created it, right? So I don't think there's any inferiority complex there. I think the future is going to be us working with better tools to deliver faster and better results. So that's the future. The future is hybrid. I don't think the future is going to be a substitute, right? As far as recruiting is concerned. So my message to recruiters, as you're saying, is that, hey guys, we are in for a great time in the next 5 years. We're going to have the best tools available to hire.
You know, and the other thing, Sanjay, will also be the fact that today for a candidate, the world is his oyster, frankly, even for leaders. I was talking to an IT company and they were looking at hiring the head of sales, and we had a huge discussion on why does the person need to be in Bangalore? It doesn't. Today you can hire absolutely anyone that you want. You just need to have that skill set within the organization. You need your HR to be really sort of up to speed so that you can engage with them and so on and so forth. But a person doesn't need to physically be in a location anymore.
Okay. Yeah,
so I
absolutely.
totally agree with Gautam that, you know, the flip side is also true, like it is for recruiters. And, you know, Gautam, I'm super excited because in your business, this is like the biggest outsourcing opportunity. We're a great English speaking country with excellent education. Outsource your recruitment to us. Hum kar denge.
We are leveraging that, Shailja, for the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And it's a huge opportunity. And not only for the
Huge.
US, but, and you know, believe me, it's been happening. Like Vietnamese recruiters, Shailja, work for Japan. And they've learned the Japanese language because Japan is such a lucrative market, right? The commissions are so much higher as compared to Vietnam. So there, I mean, these things are happening obviously in much smaller pockets, but people have figured out, innovative and enterprising people have figured out that, you know, hey, why should I work for a company in Vietnam? I'm getting paid like 10 times if I work for a company in Japan. End of the day, I just need to know the language. I'll teach myself. What's the big deal, right? So that is a great leveler, right? So location irrelevance, right, is going to be a big feature as we move forward.
Alok, how ready are organizations to, you know, come on board with some of this? I still hear a lot of cynicism around this from companies saying, you know, how will it work? How will we track performance? How will we ensure that we are getting, you know, the worth for the money we are paying? I still hear that, you know, while a lot of things have been experimented with, I also know that a lot of people have gone back to office with Gatso. You know, so what is the story there? What do you feel on this particular thing?
I think one thing is very, very clear that there is a little overhype about remote working. Were we not doing remote working before the pandemic? We were working from homes. Yeah, it was not rampant, but yes, certain section of employees, certain cross section of employees, especially in tech companies and tech-enabled companies, were still working from home. You know, 3 days office, 2 days from home, from remote locations. Yes, pandemic has made the things a little different now. But you know, some of us are tuned to, you know, this remote working. This hybrid model of you know, working from office and working from you know, remote locations will be there, you know, for times to come. What now, you know, as an organization, both as an organization and as employees, you know, one has to really learn is, and you know, since now this is becoming a common practice, one has to really learn to engage with people, learn to ensure that the performance tracking, performance reviews, feedbacks, etc. are happening. So tools are going to help us there. The engagement with employees, the communication with employees. We are still, I think, as most of the organizations, especially brick and mortar organizations like ours, right? We are still learning as to how the things will become normal in the new normal. I would put it this way. So yeah, there is still a lot of cynicism about it, but this is going to be order of the day as we move forward.
Sanjay, do you see this as any different between India and other countries, or you see a similar kind of a trend?
So I think that in a lot of other countries, and the Western world in particular, I think that this is going to continue as a trend. Asia in particular has been this very, you have to go to work, and your entire, I would, just for the lack of a better word, your entire being, your entire social status is determined, by what you do and the job that you do. It's just how it is. But I feel that India will lead the way for the rest of Asia, because I don't see too much of this happening in China. People are just going to work. In Singapore, everyone's going to work, but every organization has given 100% flexibility, saying that the choice is yours. It's not, unless you have a job that requires you to be, for example, a bank teller or somebody who's required to be in that location, manufacturing operators, plant heads, etc. You can work from home. But I think India will lead the way for this hybrid model. And maybe then you'll see a lot of other countries adopting it. But I mean, think about how incredible it would be in a country like Japan if this got implemented. So I don't really see it happening as aggressively elsewhere, but everyone has kept the option open. People are just going to work, more out of fear, I think, than anything else. That if I'm the one who doesn't turn up in the office, when they rationalize, I'm going to lose my job.
As we are coming close to the time that we have, Gautam, quickly, from what you're watching as trends for youngsters who are starting out, or people who have 2, 3, 4 years of experience, what are 3 skills you think are going to be the biggest skills that people should build, to get hired by corporate India? What are those 3 skills that you're going to advise to them to learn about?
Okay, so skills are okay. That's a very I'll need to.
So I'll say hard skills, in terms of really hard functional skills.
I think design is going to be a big one. I think people who are good at design, any kind of design, I think design is going to be especially human. I mean, the interface design, right? Because that's what most of us are going to be on, right? So design skills are hot, and people who have design, I think artists will have it really good. I think artists have been for long relegated to the fringes of society when it comes to income levels. Only very few really become big. I think this is going to be the age of the artists. I think anybody with sensible design skills is going to be good. I'm not so sure about coding, because I think coding is going to get increasingly automated. So it needs to be more on architecture and design again. So even if you're looking at tech, I think the design and architecture will be far more important than just being able to write Java code. Because now, I mean, as you know, I mean, even in our company, we are not writing that much of code, right? We just write something and then the machine will spit out the code anyway, right? So so that I'm not so sure. But again, there the architecture and design becomes very important. And the third thing would be, and it's a very strange thing, would be how do you sell without meeting people? I think, and again, I may be really futuristic here, but I think the days of pumping hands and closing deals is more something which our generation is going to be doing. A guy who's 30 years old, as you said, 5 years experience, I think he or she needs to really be able to sell the way we are doing it right now, right? This is the future, right? You're not going to be meeting, unless it's maybe a $50 million deal or, really large deal with various complexities. But a lot of selling, right? And selling has been always face to face, right? You've always shaken hands, even if it's a small deal, right? That's how we have sold, right, for the last 20 years. But I think this virtual selling, whichever word you want to use, is going to be the future. So if people, who are 25 years old, 30 years old, if they can pick up this kind of a skill, then I think they're in for a good 20 years.
Basically, digital, spaces will have to be something that you will have to learn about. And
No alternative, Sanjay. No
there's
alternative.
no other choice that we will have going forward.
Absolutely not.
Hello, from a corporate, HR guy's perspective, I'm only talking about HR as a skill. What are the 3 things that you would say HR guys will need to do to themselves to become employable? And I'm going to ask you to look at the mid-management guys, because that's where I see a lot of stress coming as we go forward. Because you will still have people, required at the bottom. You'll still have people who will need to be there from the top. But the middle is what is going to get squeezed a lot in the job game going forward. So what will be your advice to all of them as to what do they do, especially HR professionals, to remain relevant, in the job market as we go forward?
I think, Sanjay, one of the things that, we HR professionals, and especially at middle management level, have not really focused on is that HR analytics. HR analytics is going to be big game now, right? Another thing which I have always been telling my fellow colleagues in HR is that it's not about just understanding the business, or it's not just about business partnering. It is something more than, HR business partnering is more than understanding business. It is about doing business with them. So how you can put yourself in the shoes of a business manager and business leader and start performing like a business manager, I think that is one skill which we HR people, especially at middle level and entry level, and that level, we miss. I think these 2 skills, HR analytics and business manager skills, I would say, rather than HR BP or business intelligence. I think these 2 skills, and of course, the third one is which is very common, but I would see is more agility and more inclusivity in the way we HR professionals work.
Shailja, from your perspective, for recruiters especially, people who are either in a search kind of a business or from other people who are working in sourcing as independent recruiters, what would be your advice as to how do they remain relevant going forward? And what should they keep brushing up as skills or develop so that they can remain relevant?
I think Gautam answered some of this earlier in the course of this entire conversation, but I think that technology, your digital skills, how you adapt to new technologies. The other thing, which is true for most functions, is that they're resistant to change. And he said that a lot, that recruiters are also resistant to change. They have to adapt to the new technologies really fast. I also feel that recruiting is going to be extremely knowledge-centric. So it's not because the machine can read and match a set of hard skills if it's written on a piece of paper. But you need to have the knowledge to understand how good the person is at that particular skill. So I'm talking about base level recruiters, how good the person is or how bad the person is in terms of the skills and competencies presented on a piece of paper. So you need to have deep knowledge. So recruiting is now going to be very deeply knowledge-centric because there's so much more that the machines will be able to do for you and applications will be able to do for you. So it's about reading about the industries that you work in a lot, participating in conversations that are happening about the industries that you recruit for, learning from leaders in those industries, and I think also engaging very closely with business in the industries that you work in. Those are going to be very, very important.
So, which means that they will have to then learn about the domain. Would that also, would you advise them to specialize then in certain specific areas and hence, become more attractive to people?
So I honestly think the days of generalization have gone. They're long gone. You can demand a huge premium if you are a specialist.
Wonderful.
So there's no question about it. Yes.
Sure. So thank you very much. We are at the end of time for us. Thank you very much for a wonderful session and answering all of these questions. Anything that any of you want to say, anything specific, we'll close after that. Elja?
Thanks, Sanjay. Thanks for calling.
Elja?
Really enjoyed the conversation. I think it was a very engaging conversation, and I'm going to look forward to talking to the panelists and you, Sanjay, offline. Lots and lots of learning today.
Definitely, we would get together again. And Alok?
Yeah, quite wonderful, engaging with all of you, and I'm sure we have been able to add some value to the people who are on this webinar, the participants.
Thank you very much. Thank you, all the attendees who've come to this session. If you have any questions for these panelists, you can send it to us at hello@thinknobelhouse.com, and we will try and see if we can get some of your questions answered. You can engage with us on any of our social media handles as well, and we'll try and see if we can get you more answers. And we'll hopefully have this panel back some other time soon for another engaging discussion. So thanks everyone for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you, everyone.